Hey everyone, Hassan here. Welcome to the world of Ha. Today is the release of Power Rangers Cosmic Fury on Netflix. Well, technically it's like 2 days from now. I'm recording this a little bit early, but I'm going to release it on the day that Power Rangers Cosmic Fury releases on Netflix, which is September 29th, 2023. All 10 episodes, the entire season is out there now worldwide, so go check it out. This is going to be my spoiler-filled review. So a couple notes. One, huge thank you to Hasbro and Netflix for sending me a screener at the beginning of the month. It's something that I have been able to use to watch Cosmic Fury a few times now already. So I'm recording this on the Wednesday before it premieres. And just wanted to kind of do a full video with all my thoughts. So I just posted a video that was a spoiler-free impressions video to give you all kind of a general sense of what the season is like. So if you haven't watched that, go check that out. But this video is kind of the part two to where now I'm going to go in detail, spoiling everything. And I may not talk about every single plot point, but if there's things that I want to talk about, I'm not holding back. I'm going to kind of talk about everything. So make sure you have watched Cosmic Fury before you come to this video, all right? Because you do not want to be spoiled. It is a good season overall. I definitely recommend checking it out. Other note, I mentioned this in my last video. I'm not feeling 100%. My son got sick from preschool and kind of passed it on to us. I feel a lot better, and better since I recorded my spoiler-free video, but I'm still not 100%. So, in the interest of time, and also my health and everything, this is going to be just an unedited ramble of a review. There's not going to be any flashy footage or anything here. It's just going to be me talking, so you can, even if you just want to like turn off the video and just listen to me talk instead, if that's better, you're not going to miss out on anything. It's just me purely talking, sharing my thoughts. All right, with that out of the way, I just want to jump right into it and kind of go through my thoughts. I have my phone here with my notes to kind of walk through, some things that I might want to call out. So, again, final warning, spoilers. I'm talking about everything. All right, here we go. Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, Season 30. So, overall, I really liked the season. Overall, I did. I thought it was actually a really solid season. It was a nice natural evolution from Dino Fury into Cosmic Fury, but also it felt very elevated. And overall, I mean, it was just a very epic story. It was fun. I liked the character arcs, the villains, just all of it. I thought, for the most part, was pretty solid. There's a couple things I didn't like, and we're going to talk about that. But overall, I really liked it. So let's talk about the cast, right? Let's talk about each of the Rangers and kind of the overall story arc. So in general, right? So story Cosmic Fury is Zed is back. He's been brought back by Bajillionaire, and we'll talk about the villains as well. But he's back and essentially has captured the Morphin Masters, and as we find out later, wants to, use the power of the Morphin Masters and give himself that power. He gets betrayed by Bajillionaire, and there's a whole thing that ends up happening there, which we'll talk about. But basically, it's centered around that whole premise. And so the Rangers have to go out into space, go after Zed and do different things, and like Zato, disappears, so then they gotta go find him. So they kind of travel around space as well too, which is really cool. But let's talk about each of these individual characters and their story arcs, all right? So let's start with Amelia. Amelia is now Red Ranger. And I really like the way that they did it. I felt like it was very natural. I mean, she already kind of started to, take charge a little bit of the team, or at least kind of was a big focus. And then, especially as the season starts, she's kind of the one that's like, all right, team, this is what we got to do. Let's get together. Let's focus on this, and really kind of like rallies everybody together. And at first, when she, morphs, it's just one of those things where like the morphin grid just selected her to be red. So she's just wearing red, and she's like, how come I'm red? And at first she's like, but that's Zato's color. I don't know. Like, she kind of seems a little unsure, but the team reassures her and everything too. And I really liked that moment. I thought it was done well, and Amelia really steps up, I think, as leader throughout the season. I mean, heck, she's like piloting the base and stuff because it's a spaceship as well, and like she's really taken charge. So I really liked that growth for her character this season, because she really kind of has to like keep everybody going and bring people back into focus. So like you got like Ion freaking out about Zato and all these different things that are happening, and she's kind of like, you know, corralling the team together. There's also some really cool moments with her and Billy, as Billy, you know, has kind of been a ranger before. He's sort of the mentor, and Amelia leads the team, so he's kind of like talking to her a bit. So it's just some nice moments there as the leader of the team that I thought was really cool. So I really liked Amelia. Now, let's just get to the one of the things I didn't like, because let's just get that out of the way. Zato, right? Zato was the team leader, as we all know, sacrificed himself, right? And then came back in the very last scene of Season 2 of Dino Fury. The Morphin Masters brought him back. And very curious to see what his storyline was going to be in Cosmic Fury. And first and foremost, I overall kind of like the Cosmic Fury suits. They're not like the best, but I actually kind of liked them. I thought they worked well for me personally. I know not everybody's a fan. I thought they were fine. Zato's suit, though, not a fan. And it's the color. It's the color. I like the cape and stuff he had, but the color, the champagne color basically, was like so just plain and bland looking. That really looked cheap. I did not like it. And so it kind of sucks that he got like the worst suit, you know? Now, story-wise, the whole big thing with Zato is, and so part of my frustration slightly stems a little bit from comments that the executive producer Simon Bennett made. So while I appreciate, the attention and love and everything that Simon and the team put into the season, there are times when I felt like Simon said a couple things that went a little too far and I don't agree with online on social media. So lesson learned, don't always, sometimes you gotta take a step back and not say too much. And one of the complaints that I think is valid that came up is having Zato, essentially it almost felt like he was demoted. As a person of color, as a leader, now being demoted from the team for somebody else to take his place. And Simon came on social media and said, it's not a demotion. You'll understand when you see the show. Zato's crucial to the show. And then when somebody even asked him like what he would call this trilogy of Dino Fury, the 2 seasons of Cosmic Fury, he said it was the Zato trilogy. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that at all. I felt like, so in concept, conceptually, I can maybe see what they're thinking of. So Zato, his whole story arc basically is he comes back, has the power of the Morphin Masters, and uses his magic to like help out in different situations and save the team, and then eventually he is dead again. Like he goes away for good. And he becomes a Morphin Master. So in concept, the fact that Zato is not the leader of the team anymore, but he's now a Morphin Master is like, oh, okay. I mean, that is a promotion. I mean, you're freaking Morphin Master. You control the power of the Morphin Grid or whatever. Like, that's a pretty big deal. It's not done well in this season, and that is one of my big complaints about the season. I love the season overall, but this is one of the issues I had. Zato is barely, like, he's halfway through the season. He's not in half the season, basically. When he is there, he shows up, does some magic, passes out, does some magic, passes out. And it's a very vague thing of like, they kind of try and keep it a secret, and there's a whole story about he doesn't want to reveal it to everybody. By the time he does reveal it, it's so late in the game anyways. He uses magic again, and he's gone. And it's like this whole thing of like, it just felt very underdeveloped. If there were more episodes or more things to kind of go and really flesh that out a bit more, I think it might have worked. But it felt very underdeveloped. He wasn't in the season that much. And for him to come back and just kind of sacrifice himself again and then just become a Morphin Master, like, that sounds cool, but also, like, they didn't truly explain, like, why the Morphin Masters brought Zato back. I mean, if they have the power to bring people back or do whatever, like, there's probably an infinite number of other things they maybe could have done. And then also, like, when he becomes a Morphin Master, they're all like, how did that happen? Like, they all seem confused, too. And they're like, we could learn a lot from you. And it felt like it wasn't earned in a way, or like, it just kind of happened without, like, a true reason for it, you know? So conceptually, I get it, but also the fact that I feel like Zato wasn't the focus of this season, and so I don't agree with calling this the Zato trilogy. If anything, it's probably more the Amelia trilogy, because there was a lot more involving her, you know, that I feel like was probably relevant. So it's kind of, you know, even taking those comments out of consideration, even if you just ignore what was talked about on social media, just wasn't the biggest fan of that story, or at least it needed more development time. It needed more, you know, like, push behind it, or really time to kind of flesh that out a bit more. All right, enough said about Zato. That's that. Still great character, and, you know, great to have him. Just wished we got more. Let's talk about Izzy. Izzy, actually, let's do Javi first. Javi had an interesting story arc. So he, in the first episode, had his arm blown off, which for Power Rangers is pretty intense. Now, obviously, the way they did it, it's Power Rangers, so they're not going to show an arm getting blown off, right? So it just sort of, like, happened, and it just kind of, like, disappeared, sort of. Like, there was an explosion or whatever, and he just kind of, next thing you see him, he just doesn't have an arm. It's just not there. You don't see any, like, limbs flying around or anything like that. That would be too gruesome for Power Rangers. So I get it. It still felt a little rushed, but, you know, I get it. But I liked how they spent time with it, and Javi, like, it took a little bit of time for him to get used to the arm, get used to him kind of doing the whole thing, and it looked cool. I mean, once he, you know, had it dialed in, I mean, and especially the fact that he has an arm with his suit, that really elevated it. I really liked that touch, and it just looked extra cool. So I really liked, you know, that, and I think, you know, Javi just has a nice, like, development of, like, really, you know, he tried to do that for the team, and then he had to kind of, like, deal with those consequences and just be there to help, you know, support the team after that. So I liked what they did with Javi. Izzy, I thought was okay. I thought, like, Izzy's big story arc this season seemed to be revolving around her concern for Fern, and she was always kind of just, like, looking out for Fern whenever Fern wanted to, like, step up and help, because Fern, you know, got aboard the ship and all that. It was like, you know, she just always was the worried one and always kept saying, no, Fern, you gotta stay. So it kind of, after a little while, got a little repetitive. I kind of wish, like, she had developed a bit past that. But then, ultimately, what I did appreciate, though, is when Fern did become a Power Ranger, spoilers, right? So she becomes the Orange Ranger, Izzy does take a step away for a second, but then, like, Fern gets up and talks to her, and Izzy pretty much immediately accepts it. Like, she's like, you know what? It was meant to be. I mean, obviously, like, you make a great Ranger, and I'm sorry, and it kind of, like, resolved itself. So I liked how, while it was something that really was bugging, or, like, Izzy, you know, she kept kind of, like, trying to be the protector the whole time, she very quickly accepted it. If it was one thing where, like, Fern became a Ranger, and then she was like, oh no, I'm so afraid for you or whatever, I would have been like, I don't know about that. But so I really liked how they handled, you know, the ultimate resolution of it all. She pretty much accepted it and then was fine and went along with it. So I like that. So Fern, let's talk about Fern, because we got to see more of Fern. And overall, like, there was a lot happening, so there wasn't too much development time for Fern, really. And it took a few episodes before she became a Ranger. But I liked how she was always trying to help in whatever way she could, you know, whether that was in the base, like she was, you know, like helping, like, with the spaceship, you know, plans or whatever, or she wanted to, like, go out and help the team, or she wanted to help with the band thing that they did. Like, I like that it shows that she was the type of person that didn't just want to sit around do nothing. Like, she wanted to take the initiative and stuff. So it felt very natural when the time came and she went and rescued Solon and became Orange Ranger. Sort of like, yeah, I buy that. Orange Ranger, great. She's just joined the team, done. It just totally made sense. So well, she didn't really get too much time really dedicated to like getting to know her a bit more. It's just the fact that she was still willing to like try and help where she could just showed her willingness to be a part of the team. And so when she was a part of the team, it all just came together nicely. Ion, I liked how he actually got a good amount of focus this season. Especially like him really focusing on his relationship with Zato, and really worried about Zato, and trying to like his like kind of like almost like panicking or not knowing what to do, his stressing about stuff and trying to like cook and distract himself with all that. Like it was cool to kind of get a moment to really see him struggle with that and come to terms with everything. And then once he learned the secret, Zato's secret, him trying to like process that, and like you could see how it was really affecting him as well too. And so I really liked the development that he had, where ultimately he had to realize like, hey, like I gotta let go of this. It's okay, and I just gotta support him and be there for Zato and for the team. And he ultimately accepted it, and I thought that was a really nice natural progression. And it was cool because like even though Ion was like the sixth ranger on the team with Dino Fury, really going into Cosmic Fury, he's just one of the team members. He's like one of the main team members, and he got a lot of focus, in addition to other team members as well. So I really liked, that whole story arc for Ion. So I thought Ion was great. Ollie was the standout, I think, for me. He immediately turned evil and was under a spell, and I mean that actor just does great with like Kai as evil Ollie. It's so good, and what I liked about it is like the different ways that it was played. Like when Ollie was first captured and they were trying to figure out a cure or whatever, he's like going crazy and like breaking, throwing, smashing stuff, whatever. Like it just showed the intensity behind it. And then like you could see how like calculating and manipulative he was when he went to his mom and pretended like he was good. And you kind of knew that was going to happen based on how the story was going, but he just did it so well that it just worked. It was just like so sinister. And then like his turn at the end when he eventually turned good, but he stayed in evil character, right, to kind of trick the villains. It was so believably done, so that like all of a sudden when they're on the video chat, he just immediately starts attacking the villains and he yelling at the camera, telling the team like, "Hey, this is what Zed's plan is," or whatever. Like it was just done really, really well. And I like his little quips and stuff too, even as a villain. Like he was like telling Amelia like, "What? You're red now?" And then like he was like, "Oh my gosh, their base is a spaceship. What?" Like he was kind of like freaking out about stuff, but it was cool to like see him get his time to shine as a villain. And he had a freaking cool new suit too, by the way. Original new suit upgrade for Dino Fury Blue. Whatever they're going to call this for him, I don't know. Sorry, there's a really loud cricket in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. But anyways, really, really awesome suit. I love the kind of the purple morpher and the saber he had as well. And it looked so cool. So I love that. And then the fact, towards the end, he got to morph and become Cosmic Fury Blue, join the team. It all just flowed together really nicely, and I like the whole story arc. And I like that, like, the team, realistically, like, they understood, like, it wasn't Ollie's fault, right? It's not like one of those scenes sometimes you see in Power Rangers where, like I'm just rewatching some stuff in Dino Thunder, and Trent was evil, but there was that one episode where he, was... or when he was human and he kind of told the Rangers who he was and he wanted to escape or whatever, like Connor and the team didn't trust him, but it wasn't Trent's fault. Like he was under the influence of the Dino Gem, and it was kind of like, why are you guys like giving this dude a hard time? Like help him out, like be good people, be good Rangers and help out a friend. And so I didn't want a repeat of that, and so I liked how like immediately, and Ollie was worried about it. Naturally, he's like, oh man, look at all the stuff I've done. And Amelia immediately like hugged him and was like, "No, we totally know it wasn't you. We're so glad to have you back." And it just kind of like it was a great like resolution to all that as well. So that was super, super cool. Solon is great. So great seeing Solon again. We got a lot of focus on her, and a lot of the supporting cast from Dino Fury. Like almost everybody was back. I like, I'll be honest, Jane and Jayborg, not a big fan of them in Dino Fury. I just don't like over-the-top comedic relief characters that don't really serve the plot much. Bulk and Skull did it one time, and it was okay, and, moments where it was, genuinely funny, but then when you start repeating that, it just doesn't work for me. So in this, they were very briefly in it, just for a couple scenes, and it was, fine. It was good. I like their use, because it was, them here, even though there's, one or two, silly things or whatever, they still, were there to help serve the plot of the story of they're reporting the news and kind of sharing things, or they're doing their role, their job, and I really appreciated that. And the other supporting characters, again, we didn't see them much, but when they were there, it just helped to kind of bring things together. So I really appreciated that. Other characters, we got to talk about Billy. We got to talk about Billy being back as a mentor this season, and yes, he is in almost every episode, maybe every episode. In some episodes, he's more there by video chat and not necessarily with the team, but he's in it a good chunk, right? So he's in the opening theme. He's in it a lot. Couple of moments where he actually gets to morph. In the episode 1, he's out there fighting as a ranger. I think there's another episode where he fights. He's also piloting a Zord, Cosmic Fury Zord. So I really liked his role this season because he was there. He kind of helped to guide the team. He talked to Amelia a few times. He kind of talked to Javi and kind of talked him through his struggles a little bit too. Offered to help with his guitar. So just there as a person and kind of that role I think was nice. But also as a ranger, he brought his expertise to it. He helped to, create the Cosmic Fury powers. He kind of guided the team in certain situations. So I really appreciated his role. And I like that, it didn't pull the focus from the Cosmic Fury team. There's moments where he jumped in to help, but it wasn't MMPR, we're going to take over, it felt very natural. And I really liked the way that they handled, him in this season. And it was just great to have him back in what is, what seems to be the final season before this reboot under Jonathan Entwistle. So he's, there season 1, season 30. It's just a nice way to bookend that as well, which I really appreciated. We get other cameos. Mick, always great to see Mick. Only in it for a few scenes and stuff, but it was funny. I loved his scenes where there's the one scene where he had to retrace his steps as he was flying, and he started walking backwards doing Kelson Henderson is just amazing. And just to see him back again in that role. And he even got to morph again as the Ninja Steel, Ranger, and that was really, really cool. So I really appreciated that as well. We also got to see some other folks. We got to see Heckle back as the Dark Ranger. I liked how they did that. He was sort of the spy for the Resistance, and then boom, he surprised the villains and morphed. He wasn't in it for too much, pretty much just one episode. Maybe that bled into a second episode. I can't remember if it was all contained in one or not. They might have briefly shown his face in a picture in one episode and then he was in the other, something like that. But regardless, while he was there, it was cool. I loved to see him morph. It was very quick and to the point. His backstory, he was I used to be evil and then I turned good and now I'm the Dark Ranger. And that was really they didn't really go into depth about that or how he got his powers or whatever. And they didn't really need to. I think we get the point, right? And it's there to serve the story. He was the spy. He was there to help them out. And, I appreciate that. And whether intentional or not, I also thought it was kind of cool that Ollie being evil most of the season, he's blue, so there wasn't really a Blue Ranger on the team. But you had Billy filling in as blue, and also the Dark Ranger is mostly blue as well. So kind of you got your fill of blue from other Rangers as well, which was kind of cool. But overall, it was great to see. Awesome suit, and just really, really cool to see. Other cameos and things, we got to see Commander Shaw a little bit too, so that was nice to kind of tie things together. Scrozzle was back and helped to serve the plot as well too. Trying to think, and there's some other things we'll talk about with Rita and all that, but those were some of the characters. So let's talk about the villains. Zed, I really liked overall. I thought it was just the stuff he did kind of made sense, was a natural evolution of his story. The voice I thought was done, really well overall, for what it is, and I had no issues with it. The suit is so great in action. The new updated Zed suit that they use just looks really, really cool. And his whole story, he wants to have the power, right? He wants to take over. The fact that, when he thought about or got the idea of using the Morphin Master Energy, of course Zed's going to do that, right? Which the whole Master Zed thing, that suit looked really cool too. I love that whole power-up look of Zed. And then the fact of, if he's trying to rule the universe, of course he's going to take over Eltar. That's such a Zed thing to do, and hold that over Zordon. Haha, this is, my former nemesis's, planet or whatever. Or, if you read the comics, his old planet, whatever. We could get into all that, but I know the comics, the show doesn't really tie into that necessarily. But either way, I thought that was really cool. But I really liked, because they introduced a bunch of original villains, and I liked the new villains. So you have this whole what do they call it? Squid Ink Inc. So the CEO of Squid Ink Inc. was Bajilia Nair, and then her daughter Squilia Charlivia Nair was the full name. And there's a bunch of other characters like Inkworth, and they have the copy guards and all these things. So they have all the squidrills as their ships and stuff, and the mega squidrills, their big ship. So all along this whole ink and squid and that whole thing, they were fun villains. I like the whole storyline. I like even Squilia Nair, who was Squilia was very silly and kind of a bit of that comedic relief and stuff too. But even that, it was actually genuinely funny at times, and just was kind of a nice, fun little departure from some serious moments, to where it wasn't too comedic. I thought it was a nice balance of that. And overall, I really liked the original. I thought their designs were really cool too. And I thought they blended in seamlessly with the whole idea of what they were using with the Q Ranger footage of the ships and stuff, and how they call those the squidrills and all that. It just all kind of fit together, or they crafted a good narrative around that for the villains. And I know that they had a bunch of little monsters that some were pulled from different. I think one was pulled from a Zyuohger season, one of the suits and stuff. So it was kind of cool for them to do that. But just in general, overall, I really liked the villains. I thought it was pretty compelling. That cricket is really loud and obnoxious. I don't know if you all can hear that. I'm sorry. I'll have to hunt that down in a bit. It got in the house, but. So, okay, what else? So that's a lot there. All right, let me pause for a second. And resumed. I just wanted to make sure the thing, I don't lose any of the footage. So villains were really cool. I liked their whole concept of they wanted to drive up profits by starting a whole intergalactic war and everything too. And then when it was revealed at the end what Bajilia's whole plot was, it felt very believable, and kind of all the pieces falling into place, it all worked and it all kind of made sense. Except for the fact that the one thing I will say is I don't know if she intended for her daughter to she didn't, once she revealed her whole plan, she didn't seem too distraught over her daughter being dead, so it was kind of I think she cared about her daughter, or was that, I don't know, that whole motivation there was a little interesting, but overall, I really like the villains. Let's talk about the Zords. So the way that Cosmic Fury did it, right? It's an adaptation of Q Ranger, but only for the Zord footage. And I'm not going to get into should they have adapted Q Ranger suits or not, whatever. I'm talking about Cosmic Fury as is, right? And overall, and I got this is the Q Ranger mecha right here that I got just for this video here for display. But I like the way they handled it, because they didn't make it formulaic. There wasn't a Megazord fight at the end of every episode, as kind of formula. But the Zords were there when needed for the story purpose. But also, the way they did it is usually the Red Ranger pilots the Red Zord, right? Green Ranger pilots the Green Zord, and so forth. So I remember there's a lot of theories initially of like looking at this and being like, okay, well, yellow, I guess this could be gold for Ion, or there's the gold one that Ion might do. Maybe the blue one Billy will do. Like, they were kind of like, people were trying to figure out like which Zord, which Ranger would pilot, and then coming up with theories based on that. And then they're like, oh, so okay, so there's orange, and Fern's gonna be Orange Ranger, but then who's gonna do the Pink Ranger Zord? Is there gonna be a Pink Ranger? Like, people were coming up with theories. The way they did it was just like, you just pilot whatever Zord. I mean, in general, people piloted like their color, but they also didn't have to, or they could remote control any of the Zords too. So the Zords were more just like, they have a fleet of Zords at their disposal, and they use them as needed. It wasn't like, oh no, this Ranger's injured, and so we can't form this Megazord. Like, no, you could just remote pilot a Zord as you want it. So they didn't have to worry about fitting it into, or crafting the story around the footage. So if they have a footage of a Zord or a Megazord with certain Zords in place, they didn't have to be like, okay, well, these Rangers have to be here for this. It was, no, you just grab whatever ones you want for the story, right? And so I think that, while it made the Zords not seem as special to an extent, it also made it so they weren't the focus, and you could focus on the story, right? And I prefer that. I actually kind of like the way they did it. And there was a decent bit of times where the individual Zords would come in and fight too, instead of just immediately a Megazord. So I felt like you still did get to see some of the Zord action, which was kind of cool. And then there's moments where like, oh, you know, Mick is like, can I borrow he takes the bear, the light blue, you know, bear Zord or whatever, and flies off, you know, back home or something. So they're like, they just kind of use the Zord footage as needed to fly somewhere, or to you know, join forces and fight, or whatever it is. And so I liked how they handled that overall. I thought the Zord footage was done well. I also like that this being a cosmic season, they visited a lot of planets. And I actually wrote down, because each episode, up until the last couple, mostly featured around a single planet. I mean, they jumped maybe, or had scenes in a couple other ones, but like episode 1 was mostly on Zordnia. Episode 2 was mostly Earth. Episode 3 was mostly Eridus. Episode 4 was mostly Levina. Episode 5 was mostly Akrel. And then the next 3 episodes are mostly Earth, and then you get to Eltar, and then the last one I actually forgot to jot down. Was that Eltar? Or I guess Zordnia as well. I don't know. But basically, like, the first half was almost like a new planet every episode. And then there's a lot of time spent back on Earth, but it wasn't just Earth. They would bounce around and you know, do things as well. And then Eltar had a focus too, which, by the way, Eltar, we finally got to see it in Power Rangers, which is awesome. So I really like that, and I liked how, while some planets they didn't spend too much time on, other planets, like, they felt very unique, right? There was the planet, and I forget which was which, but there's one of the planets. I might have to go back and find this now in my notes. Okay, the Scuttleworm monsters and stuff was on Eridus, I think. So on Eridus, yeah, you had the Scuttleworms. It was kind of like this like desert planet and stuff. So it felt very unique in its environment and kind of, you know, the challenges they had there. And then you had the let's see. Zato was on Levina. So Levina was also the one where like the trees in the forest were alive and stuff. So it, you know, again, made each planet feel very different and unique. I'm glad it just didn't feel like another version of Earth. You know, like every planet was like kind of the same. At least as much as they could do in 10 episodes. There's a lot they had to cover. And then, you know, they had to really have a big focus around this big showdown on Earth and everything else. So for the most part, you know, I liked what they did there. They had a lot of references as well, and I love that, you know. But what I love though is when they make it seem natural, right? So there's things like they reference Zordnia, which I didn't even realize until I looked it up later, of where that's where the Shogun Zords are from. So that's like a deep cut there. But little things like There was a Nasada mention. And then we had little cameos like Commander Shaw. Billy talks about how he became a wolf ninja after becoming powers, and then he at one point pilots the cosmic wolf sword, so it's kind of, a nice little parallel there. Billy mentions Zach's hip-hop keto. They mention places like Reefside and stuff. One of the things that I loved was they talk about how the Ranger teams are fighting Zed's forces all over the universe. Alien civilians are losing their homes, and they're having to be taken back to New Tech City on Earth. New Tech City is where SPD took place, and as you know, in SPD 2025 was a safe haven for aliens in New Tech City. So they actually are like really tying it together and setting it up properly, and I love that. That is something that like everybody's always like, oh, as it's coming up, what's going to happen? Are people going to be accepting of it? And I feel like based on how things have progressed and how even now, like in Pine Ridge, like you have Ion with his cafe, and it, like people know he's selling stuff from RAFCON or whatever, and so like the idea of aliens living on Earth is a natural thing, and the fact that now you have all of these alien refugees in one city, New Tech City, it leads in perfectly to what SPD had set up, and so I love that. That is a great example of a reference that ties things together in a great way. One of my favorite references was that the team is like trapped, and then there's like a countdown for the place to blow, and Slither goes like, oh no, it's a countdown to destruction. And I laughed out loud. That was so, like, it's one of those like subtle things of like anybody watching it would just be like, oh yeah, it's a countdown, like he's just saying it or whatever. But like obviously we know, reference to Countdown to Destruction, in space finale. It was just like a subtle little funny thing. It was a great joke, and the delivery of Campbell Cooley as Slither was great for that line. Even things like as Zed destroys the Cosmic Fury Zords, he goes, "If Dark Spectre could see me now," and I was like, "Oh, Dark Spectre name drop!" Like, great stuff there. Then we have two big things. There's the wave of energy and Rita, and I want to talk about all this whole kind of thing. So there's this plot, right, of like Vigilia traps Zed in the tube, and then they want to destroy the tube and release an evil energy wave, like the opposite of the Z wave from In Space with Zordon, and basically wipe out all good in the universe. I love this storyline. And I love it because it's such a nice natural parallel as Zed's a focus of the villain this season, and just conceptually, like, the fact that like the Zordon wave is such as this established thing in the universe, and so the villains want to exploit that and create their own version of it. Like, and it's a nice way to tie into an older season, but bring a big, problem or sense of urgency for the current team to deal with, right? So I love that kind of tie-in. That made me super, super excited when I heard all that, and like all their mention about it and stuff was great. I really, really like that whole plot. What I was not the biggest fan of is the resolution to it in that once they escaped and they convinced Zed to escape, and it was kind of believable how they convinced him to escape the tube and give up the power. But then what they did is they trapped him on the planet Nibiru, and so Zed was stuck with his worst nightmare, which was Rita Repulsa there, basically just like demanding things from him, and just kind of like him having to like deal with his wife, with Rita. I just like, it was one of those things that like I guess they wanted to throw in Rita as a reference, but that was one of the references that kind of fell flat for me, and I felt like was done a little too fan servicey in a way. Like, it didn't super make sense of like, that's how you're gonna stop this big villain, is just have him be stuck dealing with his wife. I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, and it was one of those things that like also timeline wise is a little odd, because wasn't the whole thing about Zed when he was brought back at his like most evil and stuff? And I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like in Mighty Morphin, when he was brought on and then eventually like married Rita and did all that, like slowly he turned into more of just like comic relief and wasn't super scary and stuff anymore. And obviously there's some behind the scenes reasons for that, like parents thought he was too scary and they had to tone it down or whatever, right? But like, so timeline wise to me, when I think Zed at his most evil, I think before he met Rita, right? I feel like he must have been, because when he showed up, everybody was kind of freaked out. So for then him to like now suddenly remember his wife and be a part of all that, it's like, wait, I thought he was plucked. Like, what point of time did he come from? It kind of made things a little, like funky in terms of timeline. And that's kind of what made me go, we didn't really need this. This was a reference I could have done without, especially because we got a lot of Rita stuff in Once and Always. I didn't need Rita in this. Even all the Zordon stuff was fine. Like, I thought that was good. That's good enough. But I don't need Rita again in all this. You don't have to tie that together. Zed is good enough. So that was my one nitpick there about that. So let's talk about Zordon, right? Because there's this whole thing about Ion goes into the grid and talks to this being of consciousness who just, he's like, oh, Ranger, Zed, those names sound familiar. And he says, I remember something I used to say in times like this, may the power protect you. And then later there's this whole reveal where like Ion mentions that, or like Javi uses that in his song and Ion mentions it to Billy and Billy's like, wait, what? That's what Zordon used to say. Is Zordon still out there? And he kind of like freaks out. And I will say, I'm kind of two opinions on this. So my first initial opinion, up until today actually, is I actually really like this. And I liked it because, well, one, to me it was done, well, when it was first revealed, I was like, whoa, okay, this is like, it was kind of a big twist, sort of, but it was like, as a longtime fan, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't know, they're referencing Zordon. It was done kind of what felt like a natural way. If they're in the grid, maybe Zordon's kind of his consciousness in the grid in some fashion. Like, it all kind of made sense. And then, like, saying it at the end, and I know this is the one thing, like, the show pretty much wrapped up, but this was one plot thread they sort of left open of, like, is Zordon out there? I kind of took it as a cool little thing of, like, leaving some hope in a way of, like, we're ending the story, but, maybe there's hope out there, maybe Zordon's out there, and it's kind of like a nice little thing for Billy to maybe explore, do whatever. Like, it kind of ended on, like, a hopeful note for me, and yeah, it'd be cool to see more about what that might lead to, but I was fine with what they did. I know some people are like, we don't need to bring Zordon back. I wouldn't mind it, because I think there could be interesting story implications for that, but just that kind of, like, tease of it, or, like, the fact that Zordon kind of helped guide that in a little way, I like that, like, nice little touch on the end, especially as a cap to the whole 30 years of the franchise. The fact that Zordon at the end was there and kind of spoke to one of the team members and just said this whole "May the power protect you" phrase sort of lived on in its legacy. I like that. Now, I do have to, though, bring up a theory that I saw online today, actually, that actually made me sort of rethink things a little bit. So I want to shout out Tyler at Stormbreaker on Twitter, who had this theory, because Cosmic Fury was planned before Once and Always, or at least Once and Always went through other revisions and things too. But obviously it was released after Once and Always. And what has been mentioned online on social media, I think Simon Bennett maybe said this, is that Cosmic Fury takes place after Once and Always. Tyler's like, well, what if you flip it? What if Cosmic Fury happens before Once and Always? And what are the implications of that? Especially from the fact that it may have been written before all this was in place. So, taking it, let's reverse back and say, okay, Cosmic Fury takes place after Once and Always. There's nothing to necessarily contradict that. And one of the things I mentioned in my spoiler-free review was that exactly that point, is like there wasn't anything that like contradicted what happened in Once and Always. They mentioned Cranston tech, things like that. And at the very end, another cool thing that happened, they brought the Megazords back, and the Dino Megazord was piloted by Billy, and behind Billy was a MMPR Yellow Ranger. Didn't say any words or anything like that. I took it at the time to be Min. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of a nice little nod of you have Min there and kind of referencing the fact that there's a new Yellow Ranger from Once and Always, and she's kind of doing stuff with Billy. It would have been nice to have her say something or whatever, but I took that as a nice little nod of them not, like, they're not, it's not directly referencing Once and Always, but it ties in a way. But what if you flip it, right? So if we flip it, that would technically be Trini if this took place before Once and Always, which also is doable. But let's take the Zordon thing into consideration. So we go through the events of the season. Billy discovers that Zordon is out there. Now, what do we know happens in Once and Always? Billy is trying to bring Zordon back. And that leads to the events of Once and Always and leads to him bringing Rita back and et cetera, et cetera. That actually, from a story arc perspective, like, if you think about how Billy would get excited at this and jump to finding Zordon, and then it leads to the events of Once and Always, and the Once and Always sort of caps things off as the 30th anniversary, you know, like Zed's already gone, all this stuff. So then Rita pops back up as the villain, and they deal with that. Like, that actually could work really well. And then that doesn't leave things open with this Zordon plotline hanging, because the Zordon plotline leads into Once and Always. I have to rewatch Once and Always. I just saw this theory today, and I gotta like see if there's any other holes in it. But honestly, I think that's a really good theory. I really like how that could flow together. So while I initially was fine with how they did the Zordon thing, and I kind of liked how it was just sort of like this interesting, hopeful thing of like Zordon's out there, you know, and they're just kind of bringing, you know, I don't know. It just kind of like, it was just a little nice tease or something to kind of have there. I think I kind of prefer the flip side of if this wasn't necessarily a tease, but it led into Once and Always. And that capped, you start with Mighty Morphin, end with Mighty Morphin for this iteration of the franchise. Just food for thought. I know this is a very, very long video. I'm rambling, but I just had to talk about that because that was on my mind. So, lots of very, very interesting things there. What else can I talk about that I haven't already? Really good action sequences, good music, some good moments. Overall, I mean, just fun stuff. What else, man? I'm trying to think if I've missed anything else. I'm sure there's going to be things I'm going to think about after I, stop recording, but I'm looking through my notes, and I feel like I've covered a lot of stuff here. We talked about the villains. Okay, one or two other little things. Excuse me. One thing I was a little bummed about is we did not get a full team scene, battle, morph, anything. By the time Ollie comes around, Zato's sort of out of the picture, and then you have Fern join later and stuff. So there's always 5 to 7 Rangers or so, 5 to 6, however many there are, but we never have Amelia, Izzy, Javi, Ion, Zato, Ollie, Fern. I guess all 7, right? All in one morph battle scene like that together. They may all be there in human form potentially together. I'm trying to think of when Zato disappeared versus when Ollie joined. That might not have happened. Maybe at the end, actually, when Zato came. Yeah, that might have been there for a bit, but they never all morphed together. The only thing that we get is in the intro theme, which they keep revising the intro theme frequently for most of the episodes. But the very last episode, like they have in the very beginning shot of the intro theme is a shot of the morphed Rangers in this kind of wallpapery background, it's not actually from the show, and they slowly add different Rangers to it as they join. So the second to last episode has all of them except for Ollie. The last episode has all of them, including Zato, Ollie, Fern, all together. So it's got all 7, but that's just a promo shot for the intro. That's not actually in the show. So that's the one thing of only having 10 episodes, only being able to go through this. We never got a full team shot of all the Cosmic Fury suits together, which is a bummer. Like that's just a thing that you do, especially in like a finale. Like you get the whole team together. That's kind of like the cool moment, because everybody all comes together. Especially like, I know obviously, Fern started late in the season. Ollie didn't get the blue suit until very late. There's all these different things that happen, but like having it all culminate in a full team thing would have been really cool. Didn't happen just due to how the story played out. So that was a bit of a bummer, I will say. I feel like that's really all I can say. I mean, I know I didn't talk about everything, and there's no way I really can, because it's a packed season. It really, really is a very, very packed season with a lot of stuff included. So, my big takeaways, again, the things I didn't like was Zato's story arc. I felt like was very underdeveloped and unearned, and I felt like without giving it that proper time that it needed, it felt like a disservice to that character. So I was bummed about that. The whole Rita thing at the end was unnecessary. And then not having a full team, sequence or something together at the end, was a bit of a bummer. But I think those are really all my main issues with it. Overall, it was a really solid season. I really liked it. Everything else about it, like as I talked about, the story arcs, I like the suits, and there's some really cool new original suits as well with Ollie's one and everything. Fun new villains, an epic story, and I like how the story felt high stakes, and really just kept this whole momentum going. And it really felt like one long narrative. Sometimes it's hard for me to go back and say, oh, this was an episode 3 moment or episode 6 moment, because it all blends together in one cohesive story. It's not like every episode starts off with some, plot, and then like somebody's got to learn a lesson, and then there's like a monster, and then they get destroyed and grow big and Megazord. Like, it's not, it all just flows together based on the story, and different episodes have different structures depending on, what needs to happen. So it really feels like one long story, which is why when I've rewatched it, there's certain scenes and moments that I have watched a few times, like when they first become the Cosmic Fury Rangers, the music kicks in, it's epic, it's just, it gives me chills. Like, there's some certain moments that I've watched extra, but overall, it's the I've watched the entire season multiple times because it feels like one cohesive narrative, and it is very rewatchable. It's got lots of good moments to it, and I really, really enjoyed it. So, as a longtime fan, I think it's a good season with good writing, good development overall. I think a couple things that hopefully could have been improved, but overall, I think it was a nice, solid story, and I think if you like Dino Fury, you're really going to like Cosmic Fury. It goes just to the next level and really elevates it. And lots of great references and things, big and small, from cameos to throwaway lines and other things. It really felt like it was celebrating the universe as a whole, or at least using it as a way to make the universe feel big, which I always appreciate when they do that with Power Rangers. They've done that a little bit in recent years, and more so, and I've really liked how they've done that. And I guess it'll be interesting to see how this season. Obviously, the main audience, the main demographic is young kids, right? How does it cater to kids? All I can say, anecdotally, is I did show a couple episodes to my son. He's, almost 3 years old, so he's quite young. He doesn't really watch Power Rangers. He's seen a little bit of it. He knows what it is. He sees all my Power Ranger toys and stuff too. So he has like a Power Rangers, a Blue Ranger, Mighty Morphin Blue, like sweatshirt, like a hoodie, and he likes to wear that. So like he knows that, but he doesn't really watch the show much. He's seen like Day of the Dumpster, and he was interested in watching that, and the Pudgy Pig episode of Mighty Morphin. So there's been a couple episodes he's watched that he enjoyed, but for the most part he doesn't watch. I did put on some Cosmic Fury, like he was kind of playing with his toys, and I put it on in the background, and he kind of like sat down and like watched with me a little bit. So he really like was enjoying what he was watching, and he was like, "Who's that? What are they saying?" Like he was asking me like questions about it. And then later, one day I was gonna pull something up as a video, like a Power Rangers video, and he goes, "No, Daddy, put the Cosmic Fury one. Put the Cosmic Fury one." So he wanted me to actually put on Cosmic Fury. And watch that episode. So he liked seeing them like morph and fight and stuff. I was asking him the other day. I was like, "Oh, so like, what happened in Cosmic Fury?" Because he watched a lot of the episode where like Zato was missing and they're looking for Zato, and he kept asking me like, what are they doing? What are they doing? I was like, oh, they're looking for Zato. And then when they found him, they're like, oh, is that Zato? Did they find Zato? So I was telling him. So he's like, oh, you know, they were looking for Zato. They're looking for Zato. So like that's what he remembers about Cosmic Fury. So I don't know. That's just me. Whatever that means, you know, it was just a fun little thing to kind of share with him of seeing a little bit of the Cosmic Fury episodes. So maybe one day when he's older, he'll, you know, like watch and appreciate it more. And if not, then, you know, it is what it is. But, ultimately, definitely recommend. I mean, hopefully you've seen it by now if you've watched this video, because otherwise I've basically ruined it all for you. But it's a pretty solid season. So go check it out on Netflix. Yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you think as well. Is there anything else that I forgot? Any other things you'd like me to comment on? Let me know. And just what are your thoughts? What did you enjoy or not enjoy about Cosmic Fury? Would love to get your thoughts in the comments below. I've rambled for very long. This is a long video. So thank you if you watched all the way through. Let me know in the comments if you also watched all the way through. If you have, then say cool, coolio in the comments, because that is the final line of Cosmic Fury and of the Power Rangers franchise as it is in this form, apparently, before this reboot. Coolio. So if you watched all the way through, then say coolio in the comments and I'll know why. But thank you all, as always. Take care, and I'll see you later. Bye.